Kyra, who recently turned 18, lives alone in a large house while her parents travel abroad. Literature is her only escape from the boredom of her life. Her dream is to be loved. One day, she meets Jonathan, a writer and her teacher, who has found inspiration in their small town. Kyra arrives at class early, surprising Jonathan. They exchange stories, and Jonathan is impressed when Kyra reveals that she's read the entire curriculum. Kyra jokingly says she likes it rough. Soon, Winnie enters the classroom, and she and Kyra step aside to chat. Jonathan begins looking through Kyra's books and is interrupted by Boris, who notices Jonathan reading a vulgar book by Kyra. He comments that boys wouldn't typically read such things. Kyra loves reading Jonathan's books, and Jonathan mentions his wife, Beatrice, who's also a writer. Later, they are interrupted by a phone call from Emmy. The next day, the teachers relax on a bench, sipping coffee. Boris asks if there are any ghosts in the woods, and shortly after, Kyra emerges from the trees and approaches the teachers. Jonathan can't take his eyes off her, while Boris offers her a cookie. Winnie, who's interested in Boris, tries to get his attention. Kyra calls her obsession ridiculous. After class, Kyra admits to her friends that she's struggling to find a topic for her next book. Winnie suggests they experience something new, like a plot about teachers, but both of them have never been in a serious relationship. Winnie hopes to go on her first date with Boris. Kyra, meanwhile, doesn't believe Jonathan looks at her in a special way, but she's wrong. She spends the day reading Jonathan's book, and during class, they can't stop looking at each other. Jonathan asks Kyra to meet him after class, and she eagerly anticipates his attention. Later, Jonathan dances, but Kyra interrupts. She promises not to tell anyone about his hobby. Jonathan suggests she attend a poetry club to find inspiration. He's read her latest work and really liked it. Kyra blushes and shares what her piece was about. Jonathan laughs and encourages her to write in the style of her favorite author. Kyra admits she's read his entire book and recites some of her favorite lines. Jonathan doesn't know how to respond, but Kyra breaks the awkward silence and apologizes just as Winnie enters the room, ending the conversation. Later, Jonathan and Beatrice visit a cafe where Winnie works. Boris teases her, and Beatrice asks about the student who read Jonathan's book. He says she's clever and unique. Beatrice explains that Jonathan hasn't written a new book in years. He chose teaching instead. The next day, Kyra heads to the writing club, sensing it will be an important day. Jonathan is happy to see her. A young man reads his piece aloud, and Jonathan listens attentively while Kyra only watches him. The next day, Kyra brings coffee for the teachers. Boris offers his delicious biscuits. Kyra marvels at how Boris makes them, and Jonathan muses that Boris could sell them, with Winnie designing the logo. Later, the girls visit Jonathan. He tells them he'll be going on holiday with Beatrice. Winnie comments on how cute the couple is, and after Jonathan leaves, she suggests that Kyra should seduce him. Their conversation is interrupted by Boris, who is now planning to sell his cookies, with Winnie asking for his number. Later, Kyra calls Jonathan, and he promises to visit her before leaving. Kyra reflects that love is silent and inevitable. A few hours later, Jonathan arrives at Kyra's house. She wears a white dress, and he watches her as she walks toward him. Kyra stops and tells him to come closer. Jonathan stands still, and Kyra steps forward, kissing him. Afterward, Kyra continues to text Jonathan, which irritates Beatrice. Jonathan retreats to his shed, where he reads Kyra's new book, imagining that they are the main characters. He becomes so engrossed in it that he does something inappropriate. The next day, Kyra notices Jonathan's strange behavior. She asks him what's wrong, and he says she must choose a new topic. Kyra, feeling confident, insists the book is about them. Jonathan thinks it's too mature, but Kyra believes he's just scared. They are no longer strangers. Jonathan tries to remind her that he's her teacher, but Kyra insists that the book is good. She calls him excessive and irresponsible, claiming he could be better. Before leaving, she drops her manuscript in the administration's mailbox. Later, the friends gather, and Winnie asks Kyra if she likes Jonathan. Kyra dismisses him as a sushi sauce imitation, but admits she loves him. Beatrice learns about Kyra's book and wonders if it's about Jonathan. She persuades Jonathan to talk about it. Kyra suggests Winnie write to Boris, which she does. Boris visits Jonathan's family, and Beatrice notices him texting someone but can't figure out who. The conversation shifts, and Boris puts his phone away. Jonathan receives a call from the administration accusing him of inappropriate relations with Kyra. He denies everything, but the fear of losing his job grows. Beatrice begs him to tell the truth, and Jonathan swears nothing happened. The next day, Kyra skips class, and Winnie tries to make Jonathan feel guilty, but he remains cold. Kyra then goes to the headmaster, telling him about her experiences with Jonathan. Jonathan defends himself, and they're lucky their stories match. Kyra answers the headmaster's final question by saying that nothing happened that she didn't like. Jonathan is unsettled by her answer. During the break, Boris realizes that Jonathan has fallen for Kyra and warns him about crossing a line. Back home, Beatrice confronts Jonathan, and he admits there was a spark between him and Kyra. Beatrice decides to file for divorce. Winnie visits Kyra, begging her not to ruin Jonathan's life. Kyra quickly dismisses her, revealing that she has dirt on Winnie and Boris. As Kyra finishes writing her book about her and Jonathan, the film ends, leaving viewers to wonder how the complex web of emotions and consequences will unfold. Subscribe our channel RecapCue for more updates.